In the sun-kissed kingdom of Mbeko, nestled between rolling green hills and whispering rivers, the air was thick with music, color, and tradition. Drums echoed through the land as the people prepared for the annual festival of first harvest, a sacred celebration that brought villagers and royalty together, if only for one day. Among the bustling crowd was Tajiri, a young man of humble beginnings. Orphaned at 12, he was raised by his grandmother and worked as a woodcarver by the village market. His hands were rough from labor, but his spirit was soft, his eyes always filled with dreams too big for his station. High above in the royal balcony stood Princess Amara, daughter of King Zuberi, the ruler of Mbeko. With skin like bronze silk and eyes that held the wisdom of the river spirits, she was as enchanting as the moonlight on water. Unlike her father, Amara was drawn to the people. She believed in the unity of all hearts, regardless of birth. That evening, as the stars spread like spilled millet across the sky, their eyes met for the first time. It began with glances. Eyes meeting across the crowded market square, their souls greeting before their lips ever spoke. Tajiri had been carving a stool for the village elder when she passed by the first time. Amara, cloaked in a plain indigo veil, her royal ornaments hidden beneath the folds. But royalty has a certain air, a rhythm in the way they carry themselves, and Tajiri had known instantly, this was no ordinary girl. The second time they met, she came alone. She pretended to examine his carvings, brushing her fingers over the smooth edges of a lion-shaped walking stick. "Do you carve stories into your wood?" she asked without looking up. Tajiri blinked, confused. "Stories?" "Yes," she whispered, "there's a sadness in your work, as if the trees still remember what they lost." No one had ever spoken to him like that. Not even the village girls who admired his quiet strength. He looked into her eyes, searching for mockery. But there was only curiosity. "I carve what I cannot say," he replied, voice low. That was the beginning. For the next few weeks she returned, always cloaked, always curious. She called herself Nia, never revealing her true identity. Tajiri believed she might be the daughter of a wealthy merchant or a visiting noble from a neighboring tribe. What he didn't know was that he was falling in love with the princess of Mbeko. They met by the river under the curtain of moonlight, and sometimes behind the village's sacred baobab tree. Amara shed her royal form like a second skin in those moments. She would laugh, freely, beautifully. She would hum songs forbidden in the palace, eat roasted maize from his fire, and tell him stories of her dreams of freedom. Tajiri, meanwhile, spoke little, but in her presence, words came like water from a spring. He told her about his parents, how his mother died giving birth to his younger brother, who later died in infancy, and how his father was taken by illness before Tajiri could become a man. He told her about the loneliness, the scraping of hunger, the injustice of being born with nothing in a land where the few had everything. One night, after a heavy rain, Amara slipped and fell beside the riverbank. Her veil flew off as Tajiri caught her, and in the moment he looked into her unveiled face, something clicked. She was not just a visitor. Not just a curious girl. "You're the princess," he said, stunned. She didn't deny it. She only looked down and whispered, "Will you stop loving me now?" He stepped away, confused and shaken. "Why me? Why are you here?" Her eyes glistened with defiance and fear. "Because in the palace I am a bird in a golden cage. Because you speak to me like I am human, not treasure. Because my heart, it found yours." It was madness. Dangerous. Unthinkable. But Tajiri's heart, once carved from pain and loneliness, now softened in her hands. He stepped forward again and cupped her face gently. "If this is a dream, let me never wake." That night, their love blossomed under the thunderclouds and whispering trees. They kissed as the rains returned, their bodies warm against the cold wind, hearts tethered by something far stronger than fate. Weeks passed and they continued their secret meetings. But the world around them was watching. Not openly, not yet, but in Mbeko, secrets were like seeds buried in dry earth. They always found a way to break through. One day Amara did not come. 2 days passed. Then 3. Tajiri returned every night to the baobab, to the river, to the clay path where her footprints used to be. He waited in silence. Finally, on the seventh night she appeared. Her face was pale. Her eyes filled with dread. Tajiri, I am with child. The air stood still. He staggered back, hands trembling. I will stand by you, he whispered. I will take you away. We'll run to the far hills, cross the river kingdoms, start anew. But Amara shook her head. There's no running from blood. My father is King Zuberi. He will not let this go unpunished. He touched her belly, tears running down his face. Then let him punish me. But I will never leave you. That night, the stars watched over them as they held each other, not as princess and peasant, but as two souls defying the very order of the world. But Mbeko was not a place where secrets stayed silent. The palace priest, a man named Django, had followed Amara weeks before, suspicious of her absences. When he finally reported her condition to the king, all of Mbeko trembled with the wrath that followed. King Zuberi summoned the royal guards, and with the rage of a lion whose pride had been tainted, gave a single damning order. Bring me the boy. Let the people see what happens when the blood of royalty is stained by dirt. The palace courtyard had never been so silent. The birds had ceased their songs. Even the trees seemed to lean in, as if to shield themselves from the fury that was about to unfold. King Zuberi sat on his ancestral throne, carved from the sacred Irako wood of Mbeko's founding forest. His lion-headed crown weighed heavy upon his brow, not from age but from the rage boiling beneath it. His eyes were like coals, dark, hot, ready to burn anything they touched. Before him knelt his only daughter, Princess Amara, her rounded belly visible beneath the silk of her royal robe. She was not weeping. She had cried her tears in private. Now she knelt as a woman prepared to fight for her love and for her unborn child. The king's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Tell me it is a lie. Amara raised her chin. It is the truth. I am carrying Tajiri's child. Gasps rippled through the court. Advisors looked away, ashamed or afraid. The queen, Ayana, sat on her golden stool beside the throne, her expression unreadable, only her trembling hands betrayed the storm inside her. Zuberi stood. You are the daughter of kings. Your blood traces to the gods. And you have chosen to defile that line with a commoner? A carpenter's son? Amara's voice did not waver. He is more royal in heart than any man seated in this court. The king's roar echoed like thunder. Guards, bring me this Tajiri. Let the people of Mbeko see what happens when dust tries to mate with diamonds. Elsewhere in the kingdom, Tajiri was at his grandmother's hut when the palace guards came. There was no trial. No words exchanged. He was dragged through the village like a dog, his wrists bound in leather straps, his face beaten until blood stained his shirt. The villagers watched in horror, some cursing, others praying. Why? An old woman wept. He is gentle. He has harmed no one. Because he loved where he was forbidden to look, another whispered. He was thrown into the palace dungeon, a dark, wet hole beneath the earth. Chains bit into his skin. Rats danced across the floor. The only light came through a crack in the ceiling where the sun could barely reach. He didn't cry. Not for the pain. Not for the shame. His heart was with Amara, and he feared only for her. Back at the palace, Amara pleaded with her mother. Mama, you must help him. Father listens to you. Queen Ayana stroked her daughter's hair, eyes glistening. My child, your father's anger is like fire in Harmattan. It burns everything. But I will speak to him. That night, Ayana entered the king's private quarters. My king, she said softly, kneeling beside him. Do you remember when our love was also forbidden? Zuberi stiffened. You were a warrior from a distant province. The council refused to bless our union. But you fought them. You said love was mightier than tradition. Why do you forget now? The king's voice broke. Because now I am not a warrior, I am a father. A king. If I bend the rules for her, what kingdom will remain? Ayana stood. A better one. The next morning, the palace square was filled with a tense, watching crowd. Tajiri was dragged out in shackles. His face was swollen, his eyes sunken, but his gaze remained steady. King Zuberi stood above him on the royal steps. This man has trespassed where he should not have. He has taken what is not his. He has brought shame to the royal house. He shall be punished by death on the next full moon. Amara pushed through the crowd. No. All eyes turned as the princess stood before her father, belly heavy with child, tears in her eyes. If he dies, your grandson dies too. The words fell like lightning. A deep, painful silence settled over the crowd. King Zuberi's hand trembled. For the first time the lion looked like a man unsure. That night Amara went to the dungeon. The guards allowed her through not out of pity but out of awe. The princess was now more than royalty, she had become a flame they could not extinguish. She knelt beside Tajiri, reached through the bars and touched his face. "I won't let them take you," she whispered. Tajiri shook his head slowly. "If they kill me, live. Raise our child. Tell them I was not afraid." Amara sobbed. "No. If you die, a part of me dies too. I will not be queen of a kingdom that buries love in chains." The days that followed Tajiri's sentencing were marked by a strange stillness. The sky over Mbeko remained gray, as if the heavens themselves disapproved of the king's decree. Word of the princess's defiance and the commoner's courage had spread like wildfire across the land. Fishermen whispered of it on their canoes. Traders carried the story beyond the river markets. Farmers retold it between hoe strokes in the red earth. Even the children sang songs behind their mothers' backs, songs about a love stronger than crowns. In every version of the tale, one thing remained the same: Amara stood by him. In the heart of Mbeko the people began to stir. Elders gathered under the large banyan tree at the village square. For the first time in decades they questioned the throne aloud. "We once fought to build this kingdom from unity," said old Sefu, the toothless village historian. "Why should love now be punished by the same hands that once fought for it?" Others agreed. Some were silent. But the tide had turned. Queen Ayana, though careful not to publicly oppose her husband, sent messages through trusted hands to key council members, asking for mercy, not only for her daughter but for the future of the kingdom. Inside the palace walls, Amara became a ghost in her own home. Her father refused to see her, and the servants, afraid of the king's wrath, avoided her altogether. Still, every night she descended into the dungeon to be with Tajiri. They would talk through the bars. Sometimes she would sing the lullabies her mother once sang to her. Other nights she'd place his carved lion necklace around her neck and say, "No matter what happens, we will always belong to each other." And Tajiri, weakened by beatings and cold stone, would whisper, "As long as you remember me, I can never die." But time was cruel. The full moon approached. 3 days before the execution, something extraordinary happened. The people gathered. Not 50. Not 100. But hundreds, men and women from the furthest corners of the kingdom. Farmers, warriors, traders, weavers, and children. They stood outside the palace gates with nothing but their voices and their love for justice. "Let love live," they chanted. "Mercy for Tajiri. Amara chose love, we choose her." The noise shook the palace walls. Inside, King Zuberi sat in silence as the sound of his people's voices rose into the sky. For a man who had never known fear, he felt something strange: doubt. The council convenes. Forced to respond, Zuberi summoned the royal council. "The people grow loud," he said, eyes dark. "They forget their place." But Elder Malaika, a woman of fierce wisdom, stood. "They are not forgetting, my king. They are remembering that you once stood for unity. That you once defied odds for Queen Ayana's love. They ask only that you honor the same love in your daughter." Others nodded. Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. Zuberi stood and bellowed, "Do you expect me to allow my daughter to marry a man of dirt?" "No," said Queen Ayana calmly, stepping forward. "We expect you to see that love does not grow in palaces or huts. It grows where souls are true." Zuberi's hands clenched. His throne, once the symbol of power, now felt cold and heavy. The night before the execution, Amara entered the throne room alone. Her guards did not stop her. Her voice echoed beneath the high ceilings. "Father," she said, "I will not eat. I will not sleep. If you kill him, you kill me too." Zuberi turned to her. His eyes were bloodshot, not from anger, but from the battle raging within. You would give your life for this man? I have already given him my heart. What is a life without it? The king closed his eyes. For a moment the silence roared louder than drums. Dawn broke with a hush over Mbeko. The palace square was filled. Thousands had gathered, some standing on rooftops, others climbing trees just to see. The sun, golden and hesitant, cast long shadows over the execution stage. Tajiri was brought out in chains. Weak, thin but unbroken. The executioner stood ready. Then King Zuberi appeared. He walked slowly to the center, flanked by his guards. A hush fell over the crowd. He looked at Tajiri, then at the people, then at his daughter, her face radiant despite the sleepless nights and growing belly. The king raised his staff. I am a king by blood, he began. But I am a father by heart. And today I choose my heart. Gasp. Cheers. Tears. He turned to the guards. Release him. The chains fell. Tajiri collapsed into Amara's arms. Tajiri's chains hit the ground with a heavy clatter, echoing through the palace square like thunder after a drought. The crowd erupted in cries of joy, tears of disbelief running down the faces of commoners and nobles alike. Amara knelt beside Tajiri, cradling him, whispering his name over and over like a prayer answered. He looked up at her with weak eyes, then toward King Zuberi. Why? He asked softly. The king, no longer a lion but a man, looked down at him and said, Because my daughter taught me that the blood of a man means little if his heart is noble. He extended his hand. Tajiri, though bruised and weak, took it. A gesture that echoed across generations. The weeks that followed were filled with change. Mbeko had never known a wedding quite like it, grand, yet deeply rooted in the traditions of both palace and people. The royal drummers played from dusk till dawn, and the village dancers performed the dance of new beginnings, beneath strings of woven flowers and palm leaves. Tajiri wore a robe of fine cotton dyed in rich indigo and crimson, his lion-tooth pendant polished and glowing. Amara, radiant in a golden wrapper laced with ancestral embroidery, walked barefoot down the palace steps, hand in hand with the man she once loved in secret. They stood before the sacred fire, surrounded by elders and the entire kingdom. Queen Ayana blessed them with words passed from the ancient mothers. And even King Zuberi, once unbending, spoke. Let it be known that love has made this kingdom stronger than war ever could. May their union remind us that every soul, no matter how lowly born, carries the spirit of greatness. Though married to royalty, Tajiri refused to forget where he came from. He rebuilt the old carving hut, turning it into a school of craft for poor village boys who once roamed the markets like he had. He taught them not only to carve wood, but to carve identity, pride, self-worth. Amara, meanwhile, became a beloved voice in the royal court. She brought new laws to protect commoners from unjust punishment. She invited women to the council and worked to dissolve the barrier between nobility and the people. In time, the people stopped calling her the princess who disobeyed. They called her Amara the Brave. And Tajiri? He became the people's prince. Years passed. King Zuberi, old and slower in step, called his family into the royal chamber one evening. The fire crackled, shadows dancing across the walls. He looked at his grandson, Zamani, now a boy of 10, clever and kind. I was once a king who ruled with fear, he said. But I have learned that true rulers rule with love. He turned to Tajiri. You were the kingdom's shame. You became its pride. When I am gone, it is not just the crown you must carry but the people's trust. Tajiri bowed deeply. 3 moons later, the lion of Mbeko breathed his last. And so ended an era of fear. Tajiri and Amara were crowned king and queen of Mbeko beneath the full moon, the same moon that was once meant to witness Tajiri's death. Instead, it now bore witness to his rise. The people filled the valley in numbers too great to count. Songs were sung in every dialect of the land. The royal staff passed from the elders to the woodcarver who once had nothing but his hands and a dream. His first royal decree? From this day no man shall be judged by the place of his birth, but by the truth of his heart. Epilogue. Years into their rule, Amara and Tajiri continued to walk among the people, not as rulers on high but as leaders who listened. Their daughter, Marembe, danced in the same fields where they had once hidden kisses under moonlight. Their son, Zamani, learned both swordplay and storytelling. He would often say, "My father carved history, not from wood but from love." The kingdom flourished. The class barriers crumbled. Education spread. Love triumphed in song and dance and law. And to this day in the villages of Mbeko, the elders sit around firelight telling this story. Once a poor boy loved a princess. They tried to bury his love in chains. But love rose, and made a king out of him. Let love live.